Listen, I read your coverage, James, and I saw you in a double byline story after the Knicks season was over, essentially saying that Leon Rose of the Knicks front office was in favor of keeping Tom Thibodeau, and that it's essentially that plus Jalen Brunson essentially basically saying what a silly question it is to even question his tenure here as he dropped the mic in his final press conference of the season. Made me think he was safe, and he's not. What happened, James?
I think in the long haul, this organization, obviously, they don't want to just be satisfied with how far they got. And you can see how maybe the suits, those in higher powers, view this maybe season as a bit of fool's gold, right? The first round series against the Pistons, they beat the Pistons in 6, but the point differential in that series was 5 or 8 points, right? They didn't play great basketball. Credit to the Pistons, who are a good team, but the Knicks were down in the fourth quarter in those games, and the heroics of Jalen Brunson, who's an incredible player, and Karl-Anthony Towns, who's an incredible player, helped them squeeze that out. Then you look, the Boston series, they're down 20 in the games 1 and 2. They make miraculous comebacks in both. They were down 14 plus in pretty much every game in that series except 1 or 2. And then you look at the Indiana Pacers. Once Boston's at home, Cleveland's at home, they put together this roster, that being the Knicks, that is full of this talent. And they struggled. Obviously, they lost, but they also struggled with the Indiana Pacers. So I think when you kind of scope out and you look, you could understand how maybe the powers that be maybe looked at this season, this playoff run as a bit of fool's gold. Whether that's fair or unfair, I don't get paid big enough bucks to answer that, but it is certainly, I think, a reason for how we got here today.
Did something happen in exit interviews? Leon Rose apparently sitting in on these, that the players said stuff that, their body language was saying throughout the season, an argument, as we all saw, taking place on the bench at the end of the disastrous Game 1 regular, Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals in regulation, where they were arguing, seemingly barking at cat. Then we're seeing all these videos come out now in light of Thibodeau's firing, taking a look at things differently. Did anything happen in exit interviews based on your knowledge, James?
They did it in a unique way, and Ann Begley at SNY was the first to report this. James Dolan sat in on the exit interviews with the prominent figures. And I've been covering the NBA for 7 years. This was my 8th season. I have never really heard of an owner sitting in on exit meetings with players, and obviously they evaluate coaches and things like that, but it was very unique. It sounds like to me that there was a hope that there would be an admittance of some of the flaws that took place this year. That necessarily wasn't the case. And I think it's a situation where this organization they say they need a new voice. Tibbs has been there a long time. He's the best coach they've had in over a quarter century. To be fair to him, this roster got put together hours before the start of training camp, and they still got this far. I think one thing too, with all the talk about this team, obviously they had a successful season. And I think I know a lot of the issues that have arisen and been talked about, it was all basketball related stuff. It wasn't personal drama. It wasn't like you were going in the locker room and these guys were like, couldn't stand each other. It was all basketball related stuff. And I think that was probably the biggest issue throughout the course of the season. This team is very talented, but they struggled against the other top teams in the NBA during the regular season. They would put a great performance together. They would put a bad performance together. There was no consistency. They talked often about the lack of communication that they had on the floor. There was always kind of talks about we need to put our egos aside. We need to sacrifice. And it just felt like in terms of basketball, this team was not able to click. So whether or not that came across in those meetings, I'm sure it did. But those were common themes that you didn't have to be an insider to know that this team consistently talked about how they technically did not gel consistently enough with one another during this run that, again, landed them to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years.
Well, I got to be honest, though, James, when you hear egos need to be checked, that sounds personal. You know what I mean? That sounds like somebody's personality is grinding a gear here that might lead to lack of cohesion in a basketball sense. I think Josh Hart might have been the one to say that quote about egos need to be checked at the door. So, which is it? You know what I mean? Like it's so confusing from the outside looking in here to figure out there has to be more to this iceberg. We just saw the tip.
No, certainly. And I think that's a great point. And I do think when we're talking about egos and sacrificing, it's basketball related. Of course, that stuff is rooted in personality. But I just think this group they couldn't find a way to gel. There were talks of people didn't know what their role was. It certainly was a unique situation. I think if you were in the locker room every single day, again, there wasn't like personal drama. It felt like it was a group that couldn't understand why it couldn't figure it out, why it couldn't be consistent, why it couldn't do things like why are we not communicating on defense? Why are we not playing fast consistently? Why are we not moving the ball? Like, it just felt like things that they couldn't figure out to get done. And in the end, with the help of the Indiana Pacers, it ended their season.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.